footage and clips used in this video are owned by Warner Brothers and Turner Broadcasting. Please support the official release by buying DVDs or watching on streaming services. Thank you. Okay, quick little disclaimer before the video starts. My last video got taken down for copyright, even though I tried to minimize the clips as much as possible. So, as you can see on my channel, there is a re-edit where I just use screenshots. So, in hopes of avoiding another problem with the copyright holders, with this video, I'm going to be doing a mixture of screenshots and movie clips. So, just bear with me. I'm trying something new with this one. So, let's get into the video now. Hi. So today, we're going to be looking at the first live-action Ben 10 movie, that being Race Against Time. And, yeah, there is more than one, but let's just look at this one for now. So, if you watched my last movie video, you'll realize I really liked Secret of the Omnitrix, but with this movie, granted, I was excited for it when it was coming out, but after watching it, well, from what I remember, it wasn't as good. Like, yeah, it was cool to see the aliens in live action, but the story was much lower stakes and kind of forgettable. Like, with Secret of the Omnitrix, a lot of the stuff that happened in that movie had ramifications or played out in the long run. But with this movie, aside from a couple mentions in later shows, it didn't really amount to much in all honesty. But it has been a long time since I've seen this movie, unlike the other one. So let's watch it and see how it is. The movie begins in a small town called Bellwood, where we see a guy in black just walking around blowing stuff up with energy blasts, where Ben comes in as Heat Blast, asking what his evil plan is or his name. He gives him the silent treatment, so in response he shoots him with a fireball. Then, after a bit of fighting with some of his minions, Ben incinerates him and thankfully retreats just in time for the watch to time out, where we get to see Ben along with Gwen and Grandpa Max in live action for the first time. And as Grandpa Max takes them home, we get the movie's opening title sequence where we hear a rock version of the show's theme song, and it actually doesn't sound too bad if I'm going to be honest. It then cuts to the next day where we see that Ben is having a bit of a hard time readjusting to normal life, especially after a summer of fighting aliens, and afterwards, he goes to Grandpa Max, where he just wants to go on the road again, like during the summer, where he could just fight aliens all over. But Grandpa Max does end up giving him a pep talk about how he can still be a hero. He just has to learn how to readjust to being a normal kid again. Then we cut to the villain from earlier, who isn't looking too good, and also gives a random speech about how his people will just rise again, whatever that means. Then we get more scenes of Ben just trying to fit in, leading to a scene where him and his cousin Gwen end up getting roped into the school talent show. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I do not care about this part of the movie one bit. Then we get a scene where Ben is just minding his own business at a diner, where some kids from school start to make fun of him. So as a way to get back at them, he tries to turn into forearms, but the watch glitches out and turns him into gray matter instead. Okay, so aside from the gray matter transformation looking a little creepy, these kids got lucky because if he turned into forearms, he could have accidentally killed them, because unlike gray matter, who's like this big and can't really do much physically, yeah, Forearms is a big guy with 4 actual arms, and if he accidentally punched them too hard, he could kill them. So, yeah, the bullies got lucky this time. Anyways, with Gray Matter's heightened intelligence, he does some meddling to get his messy but harmless revenge on the kids who made fun of him. Then later on, we see Ben meet up with Gwen in the Rust Bucket, where she starts looking over some photos she took earlier, and she sees that in one with Ben, they see that the guy that Ben incinerated earlier might still be alive. And then when Grandpa Max sees it, he says his name is Eon and that the plumbers actually defeated him years ago. Okay, so for those of you who are watching who have never seen the show, yeah, the plumbers were an alien task force that are kind of like the Men in Black, but at this point in the show, they've mostly disbanded due to alien activity being minimized to the point of not being worth being active. And their grandpa was a sort of retired agent. But later on in the show, the Earth Division does get reinstated, so yeah, I just kind of wanted to fill that in case any of you are wondering. He also tells them that when he first showed up, he had a weapon called the Hands of Armageddon, which he almost destroyed the world with. So then Grandpa Max takes him on a little road trip, and on the way there, we actually see Ben wearing his iconic shirt from the show, which is actually kind of cool to see in live action. And their destination is actually a facility where Eon is supposed to be held. But when they get inside, they quickly notice that the place looks abandoned. And after a bit of more searching, they come across the capsule that Ian was supposed to be trapped in, all destroyed. And when they go looking for the plumber that was supposed to be watching over him, they find him, but they think he's dead, but really, he's just barely hanging on to life. He ends up telling them that Eon did this to him and that he's after the Hands of Armageddon again, as well as to warn the other plumbers that are still active. And also brings up that Ben is part of Eon's plan, but before he can elaborate, he ends up finally dying to this. So Grandpa Max then takes him to a hardware store, which is actually a secret plumber base. But unbeknownst to them, when they go inside, they're actually being watched. And when they make it down to the facility and meet the other plumbers, they notice that they're actually the townspeople that we've seen here and there at the beginning of the movie. They then take them to the Hands of Armageddon, which for some reason kind of looks like a Mayan calendar. Ben, of course, asks why they haven't just destroyed it yet, but they bring up that every time they tried, a natural disaster would happen, so the best they could do was just keep it hidden. And right on cue, Eon's minions start attacking. And while this goes on, Eon does try to activate the Hands of Armageddon to thankfully no avail. And also around this time, Ben tries to transform, but Eon drags him outside and tries to do something with the Omnitrix. Ben, of course, breaks free, but whatever Eon did made the Omnitrix unusable right now. So then Ben gets on a bike and tries to run away, but Eon captures him, or at least corners him with some vehicles he took control over. And while cornered, he tells Ben that he has the power to manipulate time, which was how he faked his death at the beginning of the movie, as well as telling Ben that he needs the Omnitrix to resurrect his people. And right as he's about to take Ben, another plumber agent that we saw earlier, or at least earlier in the movie, comes in to rescue Ben. Back at home, he has a talk with Grandpa Max, where Max says he kind of wants to get Ben out of town to hopefully keep him safe, but of course, Ben wants to keep fighting. So, as a compromise, Ben will be under plumber watch just in case Eon decides to attack him again. The next day at school, Ben and Gwen quickly notice all the plumbers hiding in plain sight just to look after him. So Ben tries to be alone for a bit in the gym, where he ends up having a nice talk with his principal, who is also a plumber. But then out of nowhere, he starts moving sporadically, and Ben figures out that Eon's here. And when he tries to run, Eon catches up, so Ben transforms into Diamond Head and fights him. After landing a pretty good hit on Eon, he then tells Ben that the fire alarm that he pulled right before the fight will lead to everyone leaving the school to the courtyard, and usually that's through the gym, which they are currently at, so they both end up retreating. Later, after the watch time's out, he meets up with Gwen, where he tells her that if Eon wants a fight, he'll give him a fight. Then it cuts to later in the night, where they're just out in the open waiting for Eon to show up, and then Grandpa Max comes in telling them this was a stupid plan, which it is. They're just out in the open waiting for something to happen. It's really obvious that this is a trap. And right as he's about to take them home, the RV blows up and Eon's minions come and capture them. And after a brief moment of seeing the other plumbers kidnapped, we see Ben and the others restrained right in front of the Hands of Armageddon, where Eon then proceeds to tell Ben about why the Omnitrix has a timeout feature. And it's mostly because it's to keep his alien DNA from overtaking him. And the reason he says this is because his DNA is actually in the Omnitrix, and that Eon is really from the future, meaning that he's actually Ben, where at some point he turned into him, and for some reason the timeout just didn't work, and then he just got trapped as him. And I'm not gonna lie, that's actually a pretty cool twist. I was not expecting that. And with that, he then proceeds to turn Ben into a younger version of him, and shortly after doing so, he leaves because two of him can't exist in the same time period, leading to Ben starting to activate the Hands of Armageddon and bring his people to Earth. Then we see Grandpa Max and Gwen break free and temporarily stop Ben, as well as Grandpa trying to destroy the Hands of Armageddon with electricity and hopefully not cause another natural disaster, as well as showing us the plumbers escaping captivity. And then we see Gwen trying to stop Ben from being evil.
How? By talking to him, of course.
Okay, so if you've seen a show or movie where a guy turns evil and the best way to turn him back is just talk to them by saying nice things or mentioning happy memories, then you've seen this scene already. I don't need to go into any more detail. I just think it's kind of stupid, but yeah, let's just get back into the movie.
Anyways, after she talks him out of it, which I still think might be the dumbest part of the whole movie, Ben turns back and quickly sees Grandpa Max trying to destroy himself to stop the hands of Armageddon. So, with the help of the plumbers, they stop him, as well as stopping the hands of Armageddon once and for all, supposedly. And with the day supposedly safe, they're all gonna head back to school for the talent show. Yeah, remember that. But out of nowhere, Eon shows up, freezing everyone except for Ben, wanting revenge for Ben obviously destroying his plans. So Ben transforms one more time, this time into Wild Mutt, and yeah, out of all the aliens, the effects for Wild Mutt are honestly the worst. Except for the effects they use to show his senses, those actually look pretty cool. And with that, he is able to finally defeat Eon by flinging him into the hands of Armageddon, destroying it finally. As well as giving them enough time to go back to the talent show and use Ben turning back as a magic trick. Yeah, I still don't care about any of this. Then the movie comes to an end with all of them about to get pizza, as well as showing a UFO in the sky indicating that Ben's adventures fighting aliens are far from over.
And that was my video on Ben 10 Race Against Time. And like I said in the beginning, it's not as good as Secret of the Omnitrix, but I didn't really expect it to be. And the plot is, I don't know, it just feels like an episode of the show if it took place after the summer. And yes, I am aware one does exist, but it was a what if episode, so it doesn't even count. Like, if you're a fan of the show, I think you'll like it, but if not, yeah, I don't see you getting much out of it. And yeah, it is sort of forgettable, but I'd rather watch a forgettable movie than a bad one, because with forgettable movies, they can be okay or somewhat decent, but you just forget about them. With bad movies, they linger in your head for God knows how long, and you wonder why the hell you even watched it. And I'm happy this movie doesn't fall under that category. So, for next video, we're going to look at the next live-action movie. A movie I actually remember less about because I never had the DVD growing up, and honestly, I just never saw it on TV too much. That, of course, being Ben 10 Alien Swarm. I look forward to seeing you guys then.